Welcome to It's About Writing, a weekly vlog by writers for writers to educate, encourage, and promote writers. Join us as we interview people with experience in all areas of writing. And we are so excited to have our guest today, Patricia Bradley, and we're going to enjoy having a wonderful time, I think, hearing about her story as a writer and the arc of her journey in writing. And so we are just thrilled to have you with us today. Thanks for being with us, Patricia.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this. It is going to be fun.
I think so. We've enjoyed just a few minutes prior to the interview getting to know one another a little bit. And it's very exciting to hear how you got started and where you are today with a number of books that you have published and a very accomplished author. So could you tell us a little bit about your story, how you got started, and where you are today with your writing?
When I was 35, I had always been a reader. I'd read anything, cereal boxes, just anything. The newspaper, I always read the newspaper from front to back. Usually started with a comic strip. In fact, I started reading the comics when I was about 4 or 5. And but when I turned 35, I couldn't sleep. I don't know why, but as I lay there one night staring at the ceiling, this man appeared to me in like a vision, and it wasn't exactly a vision, but I could see him in my mind's eye. And he was standing at a window, and there was smokestacks billowing behind him. And he turned to me and he said, "This wasn't the way my life was supposed to turn out." And I thought, wow. And so instead of laying there staring at the ceiling, I started telling myself his story, why his life turned out so badly, or what happened to him in my head. And then I didn't know anything about writing. I mean, absolutely zero. And so I think I started getting Writer's Digest magazine, and I would read the fiction part, and then I read a lot, but I decided to start putting some stories. These other people came to live in my head, and they wouldn't go away, so I started writing their stories. And Woman's World actually published the very first thing I ever wrote. I did what every writer should do. I sent 4,500 words when all she asked for was 2,500. That should have been an automatic, put the story in the SASE that I had to send with it, which is a self-addressed stamped envelope. That should have automatically came back to me, but instead she bought it and made the cuts. And to me, that was God encouraging me and telling me that this is what I was supposed to do. So I wrote a few more stories. The second one I sent in, I think it was the second or third, it was only 500 words over, and they bought it, but I had to make the cuts that time. And that taught me so much about writing. And I'm a very lean writer, and I lay it to that editor. And but I really did learn how to tighten up scenes with that. And then I'm thinking, my husband passed away in 97, and I have more time on my hands. I thought, well, I'll get that book finished. In 99 or 2000, I went to work for the abstinence program in our state. And it's like that door opened. And so I began to work with the kids in school, and which is what I'd always wanted to do. And for 7 or 8 years, that's what I did. And I had absolutely no creative thoughts as far as fiction. I was able to write nonfiction, but not fiction. So it was like God just took me out of it for a while. And then when I finished the workbook and the curriculum, it's like all these characters started coming into my head, and I started writing again. And that's basically how I got started writing.
That's wonderful. Wow. And one of the things that I think we were talking about earlier is just, seasons in life. So at the age of 35, you got started, but then you had a pretty big interlude, if you will. And with, ministry and working with the abstinence program, but then what happened after that is pretty phenomenal, I think.
Right. In 2010, I went to my first Deep Thinkers with Susan May Warren, and I did 3 of them, and it was almost like a college education. That it was so intense. It was 5 days from 8 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night of writing and learning about writing. And so that was just, I learned and I basically learned how to write commercial fiction, which is what I write. I do not write literary. I don't pretend to write literary. I write simply to entertain. And
and we all need that, especially these days, you know.
Yes, and to me, and I think that's, I mean, literary has its place, and I enjoy reading some of it, but I really do. My purpose is I kill people. I mean, and then I catch you, and then I catch the bad guy. But in 2012, I got an agent. I won I finaled in the Genesis, and got an agent. And then Revell, which is Baker Books, they offered me a contract. So 2012 was my year. My first book released about 5 days after my 69th birthday. And that I say that to encourage people who are older and who think I'm too old to start something new. I'm here to tell you, you're never too old to start something new. I have a friend who's 78, and her first book will be published in January.
That's wonderful. Yeah.
To me, if you've got a dream, go for it. Because in 5 years, don't still have that dream and have done nothing about it.
Exactly.
Because just go for it. What do you have to? What does anyone have to lose?
Yeah, and you know, I don't know how old you are, but we're probably in the same age bracket, and you know, it's a different season in life. I mean, when you were working, you know, with the abstinence program, you know, that took all of your attention. I find myself, I'm kind of semi-retired now. You know, there's so much more room and space for creativity and to think about the things that maybe I wanted to do in my 40s or 50s. And so, you know, every season is kind of unique in life. And I think it's really important to never let age get in the way of a vision or a dream or you know, a passion that we have. So I love hearing your story, and just to see how you know, you're still going strong. I mean, you've got, tell us about your series, if you would.
Yeah, I'm working. My first series was 4 books, which was, it was set in Logan Point, which is a fictional town right outside of Memphis. And actually what I did was move Corinth and the surrounding Pickwick Lake and all of that area over next to Memphis. I even moved the Tennessee River over there, which was so funny. I asked my editor, should I put a word of warning in here? And she said, no, it's fiction.
Yeah, you can do that with fiction, right?
Right. So, and I love that series. It's a small town. And then I grew up in Memphis, and I know Memphis pretty well. One of my brother-in-law was a police officer over there. And so I've always had a fond spot for the policemen. And I decided I wanted to write some cold cases. So my second series that was cold cases set in Memphis, and they were fictional, and that was a lot of fun. And then I lived near the Natchez Trace, so I pitched the idea to my editor of setting a book on the Trace. Well, I actually had planned for it to be in Alabama, right not far from me, near Florence and in Tuscumbia, the Tri-Cities area up here. And but no, my editor fell in love with the thought of setting one in Natchez.
Yeah.
I had never been to Natchez. I always wanted to go, and so I set out from Corinth and drove the Trace to Natchez, which is about 7 hours from here. I mean, the speed limit is 50 miles an hour, and there's so many places to stop and to look. And so, and then I fell in love with the town of Natchez. I love that town. It's about the same size as Corinth, only about 16,000 people. but I don't know, it's South Mississippi. So it's just a different atmosphere. And I'm working now on my third book there. So I have 9 books out with Revell. One comes out in February. It's 10. I'm working on the 11th. I've written 2 books for Harlequin, which for their heartwarming series. So that's 12, 13, 14 books and 3 novellas.
Well, that's phenomenal.
All of them except one since 2013.
That's what I was going to say. I mean, it's almost like the dam broke, right? It's like, seems like
and that's all I do.
Creative reservoir built up, and it's just like, this is the season where, you know,
it is the
God's
season.
Released that. Yeah.
Yeah. People tell me, you know, you're old. Why don't you retire? I mean, why don't you stop and do what you want to do? And I said, well, that's what I'm doing.
Right.
I can't think of anything I would rather do. Even on the worst days when writing is like pulling your teeth or pulling a horse's teeth, I would rather be writing than most anything else I do, except for some reason you just fight it, you know. But I'm pretty disciplined right now. I'm writing about 2,000 words a day. COVID really messed with my brain. I was not able to. I should have been working on this book in April and May, and I simply could not. I couldn't do it. And so I think I started on it sometime in July. Let me look. I have a wall calendar. Yes, the end of July is when I started working on it, and I'm hitting 2,000 words a day. Usually write 5 days a week unless I don't get the 2,000. I want 10,000 a week is what I want. So
wow, yeah. So very disciplined, and you schedule some real practical daily goals for yourself. And does that help you get into a rhythm, do you think?
Yeah, well, the first half, I'm right now right at the middle. I've worked up to the midpoint, and that's usually the hardest because I don't know my characters that well. I started out a plotter, laying it out. And as each book goes along, I have gotten to where I'm more of a pantster, and my characters don't really start talking to me until I start writing about them. I found out as much about them as I can, but it actually takes writing about them before I get to know them. And that's weird. I mean, but that's the way these are working. So
yeah, well, it sounds like the words sort of speak to you off the page about the character.
Right. I know my characters well enough now that what they do triggers something else. Yeah, it triggers another thought. And so I'm right at the halfway point and not really sure where I'm going from here other than the ending. So, but I've got the ending to shoot for, and I'm knowing more. I mean, I don't even know who the villain is yet.
Well, that's probably good because your reader's not going to know, right? I mean, if you don't know yet, then the reader's still trying to figure that out.
I try to set up, and I like to leave enough clues that toward the end, if you've really been paying attention, you can figure out who did it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because to me, I like to figure it out, you know. So I want to give my readers the same option. So I try to lay enough clues pointing at who it is, and I'm pretty sure I have dual protagonists. They're romantic suspense, so I have the hero and heroine, but I usually have dual antagonists.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I do, and so the reader, you know, the reader doesn't know always which antagonist is doing what. I mean, it's happening. And so when the first antagonist is caught, it's like, whew, now I can relax. And then the second one comes along.
Wow.
Here's another twist.
Yeah, yeah. So you've always got the reader guessing. And
I hope.
Trying to figure it out.
People seem to like my books. And most people who email me tell me or contact me tell me that one person burned their supper.
That's a high compliment, right?
Yeah, and another girl was late to work because she stayed up all night to finish it.
That's great. Well, I have to confess, I haven't read any of your books, but I really want to now, just hearing about how you develop them and sort of the sense of place and intrigue, they sound really compelling. That's fantastic. Well, I do want to go back to, I've had this slide up earlier, but I just want to make sure that people can actually see, as you mentioned, 3 different series that you've written, and all since 2013, which I just think is phenomenal. And sort of the locations, the romantic suspense novels, including Logan Point series and Memphis Cold Case novels, and the newest one, which you're working on, which the beginning of it was first 2 books were Standoff. Okay, right. And then Natchez Trace, and then May 5th, but you're working on the 3rd one right now. Is that right?
Right. The second one, I've just turned in edits for Obsession, it was originally called Crosshairs. And, as the story went along, I realized that did not fit, that the heroine has someone who is obsessed with her.
Oh.
And Obsession was supposed to be the 3rd book. And so, but I contacted my publicist and I said, can we switch the titles? Because Obsession is really fitting the story. Because I mean, when I pitch a series, I pitch 4 ideas and synopsis on the first book. And I don't think to date I have written what I pitched other than the first one. So.
Well, it's probably because it's been better, and I'm sure your publishers recognize that. Yeah.
But I mean, it's really hard to sit down and know what a book's going to be about unless you've written it, because it changes. Ideas come to you, and God really does help. He brings ideas to me. I couldn't write without. A lot of people say they have a muse. Well, God helps me, and I spend a lot of time in prayer because it takes it. It just I couldn't do this without. God gifted me to write, and I do it because to not use it would be throwing away a gift. And because I mean, writing is truly a gift. I mean, you have to work hard and you have to learn the craft.
Yes.
And I don't know if I had known how hard it was going to be, I still would have done it, because I've always, since I was 35, I can't think about not writing. I mean, it just, I don't feel complete unless I'm writing.
I've heard that from songwriters, and from all kinds of writers, as well as visual artists. It's this kind of thing of, I have to do this,
Yeah.
Can't imagine life not doing it. And it's a real obsession.
It is. And Barbara Cartman was still writing at 92. And so was Mary Higgins Clark. So
I love that, and I really do. Well, this has just been delightful, Patricia, and I hope that as we continue doing these interviews with It's About Writing, that you'll be able to come back and maybe talk about the 3rd book, and how that ended up. But
that would be great.
Hearing about your process and your discipline and your story of how you got started and what you're doing in this season of life, I think has been very inspiring. And so if you have like one last thought for how you would encourage other writers, what would you want to say?
I would say that to go for your dream, that realize that it is going to be hard work, and you're not always going to get a yes on everything. I mean, if you're a writer, you really have to develop a very thick skin, because I mean, none of us like for someone to say, I don't like your baby. Which is basically, when you get a review and they don't like it, they're basically saying, I don't like your baby, or your baby's ugly.
Yeah, right.
So you have to develop a thick skin. And it's not about you. It's just, it's just, there are going to be some ups and downs. And publishing is so very slow. I mean, for me, when I turn in a book, it's a year before it comes out.
Right.
So, I mean, that's how slow it is. And that's one advantage over indie publishing is you can get them out a lot quicker.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
and my novellas are indie published.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know. Well, this has been wonderful, Patricia. I really appreciate it. And
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, as I said, I'm going to enjoy, sampling some of your work, getting into one of your novels. And
started the first one of it. Whichever one you start with, whichever series, started the first one.
Okay.
Actually, I wrote in the Shadows of the Past should be followed by the third book, Gone Without a Trace, and A Promise to Protect should be followed by Silence in the Dark. That's how much I did not know.
Okay, well, I will look for those and look forward to reading that. And once again, thank you so much for being with us. And this is It's About Writing, a weekly vlog by writers for writers to educate, encourage, and promote writers. And I think you have definitely done that today, Patricia.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
Yes, please join us in the future as we interview people with experience in all areas of writing. And until then, keep writing. Thanks, everyone.
Oh, that was fun. I think you quit recording. No, you didn't.
I haven't. I'm looking for.
Yeah, you have to
go back.
I think you have to.
Yeah.
Down at the bottom.